All right, in this video, I wanted to cover enhancing magic, right? So this one is relatively straightforward. There's only a couple gotchas, and that's just because it's a little bit unusual. Just going to reload a blank profile just to show you. Um, you can just pretend Luthien is a red mage, scholar, what have you. But the same concepts apply, right? So you start off usually left to right. So I'm on my party tab. I got to select the players that I want to have enhancing magic for. By default, there's always at least one character. If you don't do any, I suppose you could remove it, but it's going to at least put one character up. I'm just going to add them all in just to show you. On this page, again, you can sort up and down. Maintain buffs, you're pretty much always going to want to have that. And generally speaking, I usually like to do about 30 seconds. And what this will do is, like, when haste gets down to 30 seconds or lower, it'll reapply haste, right? So that way it will maintain your buff. Now, here's the first kind of gotcha, is most people will just be like, all right, I enabled this. Okay, well, let's hit start. And then they're like, well, Luthien isn't casting Protect a Shell, right? Because you have to click on each character. See that? Each character you gotta do it for. So now when I go there, for instance, I don't know, maybe I want Turin to have Flurry, right? Protection Shell. And Yavanna, I want Refresh. Those three, right? So it's by person. So that's the first thing to grapple with and to understand is under the players, you have to select each player. This player list is determined by this particular order, right? So it'll go down, it'll buff these players, no problem, right? You're just going to send them all. Okay, so that's the party. Then you have self buffs. Nothing too unusual here, just select whatever you want. Now, this is a second got you, is you did your party buffs, you did your self buffs, you're not done, right? So you have to enable the priorities. There's high, normal, and low, right? It's just simply a check mark. They're going to default into buffs in these categories. They are just ones that I felt were reasonable. You can sort them, right? So maybe you want Refresh first, Utsumi last, what have you. Or maybe you're like, I don't even care about Utsumi. You can remove them from the priority, and then say if you want Utsumi the highest of low priority, well then you can just move it all the way up, right? So usually people want a high priority because what you'll do in your priority list, you'll put high to the top so that when your character raises, if they're a white mage, a red mage, a scholar, the first action they're going to do, they're going to cast re-raise because you put that on the high priority, and high priority is above normal priority, and normal priority is above low priority, right? You see how that kind of flows. And these are just lists. You can remove them, and maybe you want, I don't know, auspice is the highest priority. You can do that, right? They're just lists. Sort them up and down, and yeah. A third one is it's not fully done yet, and it's because of how the mechanics work. Is out of party buffs for the alliance, haste, protect shell. They're not implemented yet. Okay, so they're going to require keeping track of them. It'll probably come about the same time I do enfeebling, just because of how the mechanics and structures I'll make. But those are the kind of the three big things. First off is understanding I click on each one of these. Then usually the next hiccup is not enabling the priorities. And then if you're trying to, because these are alliance, so if you try to pull in like someone over here to do a protector shell on and they're in another party, that will just keep continuously casting on it because it doesn't keep track of out of parties, because the way the packets and structure works, you only know your party. You don't know the alliance. So I do have mechanisms and stuff like that put in place right now. Currently, it doesn't. It's not supported right now. So I'll give an example just to go over to my Scholar, and this is just I have an Odyssey profile that I run. So top priority is my monk, and yep, the whole party, and these are what she's, my Scholar is going to try to maintain. Nothing too unusual. I should probably put her aura on over here a little bit better. Self buffs, nothing too crazy. In this particular case, when I run Odyssey, I always do end water. Every once in a while, you'll run into a Dahak, and if you don't have an end water, you're going to get a full dispel somewhere, more than likely. And all these are actually standard. I really haven't changed these too much. Maybe I put regen up top, but the other big key here is, like in Scholar, you got to enable the job abilities, because for Scholar they really complement the enhancing magic that they have. So I don't think I'll do job specific videos. Most of them are pretty straightforward. Scholar is probably one of the more difficult ones to get around, because if you don't understand what this force job ability means and all that sort of stuff, right? So Scholar, if I want to do regen, I want to have perpetuance, or I'm sorry, accession, perpetuance, and then what does this third column mean? Third column basically means it's not going to cast a spell. It's not going to cast regen at all unless it has at least two stratum recharges, so I can do that. That's what forcing means. It's going to stop and not cast it until this is available, right? So that's kind of what you know. So when you're coming to enhancing magic and you're setting up a Scholar, generally speaking, most of it is going to be on the Scholar, because my Protect Shell is going to be a session, right? And Phalanx are going to be session perpetuance along with regen. There is an option to perpetuance the haste, but again, for the most part, that's all you really need to worry about on enhancing. It's pretty good, like I said, especially the maintained buffs, and but it's not supported yet to do out of party buffs. But the maintained buff won't be available when that happens, because there's no way to know the buff durations of out of party members. And one caveat to the maintaining buffs is, if your fifth party member or whatever, say you have 5 characters and the sixth one is another friend, right? It won't be able to maintain the buff, but it will just reapply it when it goes off, right? So it's not a big deal. It just won't be able to maintain, because these the Silmaril is able to share information between all the instances. So I mean, it basically, what happens is like, another player doesn't know I have 27 minutes left on my shell, but I know I have 27 minutes left on my shell. And so, since Yavanna knows that, Maedros knows that, Morrowind knows it. They all know it now, because it's a server, right? So I share all the information. So if you have a 6th player that is not part of your instance or your multi-box setup, it won't be able to know the buff duration that's remaining, and so it's going to behave like, shell drops off, it'll reapply shell. It won't be able to maintain it. That's just a small caveat in how all that works. Again, it's just a limitation in how they really reduce the amount of information to share. But if you got any questions, comments, just drop into the Discord. Like I said, enhancing pretty straightforward, so it shouldn't be too bad. I guess I'll handle debuffs next video.